Morning, everyone. Welcome to Wake Up, Show Up with me, and Cara Cherise, who's going to be joining us in a minute. Let's hang out and wait for her. Okay, so I've been in Florida. Regular visitors join. Share. Hey, guys. I've been in Florida for like 2 weeks now, and it's been raining basically every single day. But actually, well, let me do this. This is my view. So I get palm trees and a pool and all kinds of wonderful stuff. So I can't actually complain. Cara's here. Okay, she's gonna join. We're switching roles this week. Usually she goes live and I join. All right, there we go. Request being your live video. Let's do this. Go. It's gonna work. Woohoo!
Morning!
Yes! Oh my god, this song.
Are you hearing it? Let's rock out for a little bit.
I love this song. This is on my hit playlist.
You like this? You know what? I haven't really listened to this song.
Morning!
Morning, guys!
Hey, everyone! Who's
I feel
here?
like I need a little more light here. Can you put on a little more light? You got some good light over there in Florida. It's so gloomy over here in Jersey.
It's, I was just telling everyone, I've been here for 2 weeks. It's rained it's rained like 10 of the 14 days I've been here. So it's not actually like that much better. Is it raining there too?
Yeah, it's raining. I don't know if it's supposed to rain all day, but I did see that it's supposed to be like cloudy all day. So
Yeah, that's basically what it's like here. But hey, everyone. Today we are going to be talking about my favorite topic. Anyone who's worked with me knows this. They're going to like roll their eyes. They're going to be like, more of this, Lauren? Really? But we are talking about intuition, alignment, and listening to your internal guidance system and what that uniquely sounds like for you. So Cara and I both like have really similar stories on this, but also some really specific differences that make this a really interesting conversation in terms of kind of how we got where we are, how we make decisions, how we rely on our intuitions, like what alignment feels like for us, and all of these things. Cara, I should pin the topic, huh?
yeah, I was gonna try to see if I can do it. I've like typed half of it. And so maybe if I send it, you might have to hold it down to pin it. So I'm just gonna put like intuition, right?
Yeah. You're watching in real time how we learn how to do this.
Right. All right. So I just did it. Let me see if I can pin it.
Pin comment. I got it.
Oh, you got to do it. Okay.
There we go. I did it. So, Cara, how was your weekend?
It was good. My weekend was like really good. I worked. I work, girl. But
you do.
But I actually allowed myself time this weekend to enjoy. And so yesterday, I had like a little picnic. Like I was like, you know what? I worked until about 4:00. And then I was like, I'm going to the park. I took 2 glasses of wine, a bottle of wine, and we just kind of rocked out in the park. It was just like me and my mom though. So nothing crazy, but
that's so cute.
Yeah.
It's so nice that your mom is close then.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that. That's so nice. That makes it so easy.
Yeah, so it was cool. We had a good time, and so I was like, I deserve this, and so that was good.
You deserve this. you work hard like anyone I know.
Yeah, I worked all day Saturday, so I'm like, just doing a lot with like the LEAP program and stuff. So yeah, how about your weekend?
I laid really low. I was so excited because I rented a car finally. So everyone, I've been carless down in Florida. So I've been like, I'm going to walk everywhere. It's going to be great. Yeah. Florida's not Manhattan. That's really not like an option for people. And about like a weekend, I realized I was like, this is not going to work at all. So I rented a car because I was planning on spending the whole weekend at the beach. Didn't check the weather report. Rained the whole time, but I ended up going to visit. I ended up going and talking actually to, so my coach and mentor happens to be down here. So, and like good friend of mine. So we went to a bookstore and like we went to a cafe and we're kind of like hanging out and catching up. Yeah, yeah. You know Jess. I've talked to you about Jess, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So really, really cool. But yeah, definitely laid low and just kind of chilled out, which like caught up with friends and things like that. So
That's good.
yeah, yeah, it
That's
was really, really
good.
good. Yeah. So, and everyone, so today, again, we're talking about intuition, and alignment. Uh, and Cara, I'm curious, like, what for you, like, what role would you say that played in your, like, in your path? Like, I know our paths are so similar, but we've never actually talked. I feel like you're very someone who's naturally very, very in tune with like her internal guidance system. Like, you know what's right for you, and you roll
Mm-hmm.
with it. But I'm curious about like what that's looked like for you.
Yeah, no, definitely a lot of my life, honestly. A lot of my life, like job wise, relationship wise, friendship wise. Um, I move a lot with my intuition, but I wouldn't say that up until now I wasn't a master at it, right? I didn't know like how to naturally go within to like actively pull that out. And so after some time, or even to trust it, right? Because we all have
Yes.
intuition. And I didn't learn to trust my intuition like wholeheartedly. Like when I started to feel it, to start to put the wheels in motion until very recently, right? And I would feel things, but it would take me a little while, and then I would like, but when I got there and I felt really confident, I'm done. Like I was like,
Yeah.
it's like a light bulb will like switch on for me, and it was
That's so
like, and it might just be something that's like ding, and then I'm like, so yeah. But my intuition has played a
interesting.
huge role, especially in the last year. Once I got really clear on like, again, a lot of the inner work that I was doing in 2018, like really going deep. Once I got super clear on that, like it determined my relationships, it determined my job,
Yeah.
obviously. It determined what opportunities I took advantage of, and who I entertained and what type of energy I wanted in my space. So the last year, I would say I really honed in on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I've totally seen you do that. And it's really interesting because you just like, I feel like you very naturally connected with it. And actually, it's so interesting. I've never asked you that question before. And it shows
No.
up very similarly for me. Like, I've
Mm.
gotten really clear on my process recently and like making decisions. And I used to be a very like, the reason that we wanted to talk about this today, everyone, is that like, I think we're trained. Most of us are trained to make decisions in a very logical, head-based way.
Mm-hmm.
And like not really it's really like neck up a lot of logic, reasoning, strategy, pro and con lists, like things like this, like spreadsheets. I mean, maybe not quite that intense, but you know, I'm surrounded by a lot of people who literally use spreadsheets to make decisions. And so like if you'd asked me 4 or 5 years ago, like, what's your intuition telling you? I would have been like, the hell are you talking about? Like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
even know what that means. And I think when you go on this journey of being an entrepreneur and really like go off on your own, you really start learning how to like dial in like what is in alignment for you, because when you're out of alignment, your business literally suffers, and so does your health, your relationships. It's like it really, really doesn't work. And so what's really cool is that I've seen Cara get really, really good at this also. And like it's so interesting, Cara, that you said that, because I recently have become very aware of what my decision making process looks like optimally.
Mm-hmm.
And like as someone who used to be like, I used to have to analyze the crap out of things to
Yeah.
determine whether or not they were right for me. Now I kind of have my process where I'm chewing on something. I'm like, okay, so for example, like moving down to Florida for like temporarily, I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I feel like maybe I should move to Florida, but I'm not totally sure yet. And normally that would be the place where I'd go into like full logical figure it out mode and like overanalyze it and kind of torture myself trying to figure out what was right. And
Yeah.
then I literally woke up one morning with this incredibly deep sense of peace
Yeah.
of like, oh, it's time to go.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's really like that, Cara, where like you kind of described something similar, where it's almost like something just clicks into place and you're like, oh, I got it. But you
Mm-hmm.
have to be connected with yourself to be able, and like trust that feeling to be able to know what's right for you. Otherwise, like, you know, people kind of have that feeling and they talk themselves out of it or whatever, and then we end up spinning, or we end up doing this like, you know, getting completely caught in our heads and caught in indecision.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. No, to your point, like you said, it's like something just goes off and it's like, and I think it's too like the path of least resistance, right? So a lot of times when we are going back and forth on our heads and like chewing on something or noodling on something and trying to figure out like what is the right decision,
Mm-hmm.
and then like you said, you had a moment of feeling like complete peace with it, and it's like, ah, like this works, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And I think that's when like you begin to, and then I obviously once you do something once and it works out, or you're like, it's okay, you start to be like, all right, I can trust this, and it builds confidence. And I think that's what started to happen with me. When I'm like, after I would do something, it's like getting over that hump, and then I'm like, huh, it doesn't actually feel as bad as I thought it would feel. This actually feels really good.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I love that you said that too, because we're taught. So like, I think the reason that this is, the reason that this is important for everyone, I think, is that like we can really, I think when you really get caught in super heady decision making, there's nothing wrong with that. It's like, certain things like, you know, projections and planning and pros and cons, like these are all things that deserve like part of, to be part of the conversation. They're data points, but
Right.
also being able to check in with yourself is so incredibly important. And like, especially if, internally we're being told something, or like we feel like we're being guided in a certain direction, like internally we feel like we're being pulled towards something that doesn't fully make sense.
Yeah.
And like, I think, Cara, like that feeling right beforehand where you're like, what is this? What's going to happen if I do this? Like, is the world going to light on fire? I feel like I'm being like, you feel like you're being illogical or whatever. And then you do it and you realize like, oh, that actually was totally the right thing for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, you have to kind of do it over and over and over again to be able to kind of build that muscle and realize that actually like, it's like you are worth listening to.
Yeah. And I think so. My question to you, Lauren, because I know like you're really good at this, like I feel like, and maybe I'm doing it like naturally. Well, I'm sure, not maybe, I'm sure
You
I'm
are.
doing it
You are.
naturally. But for someone who's like, who's confused and like, they're like, well, I don't know if it's my intuition or am I being irrational or am I being selfish? What is this for someone who's like, I don't know how to go within to tap into what my soul wants or my spirit wants? Like, what's
Yeah.
something that you would tell them to like help with that?
Oh my gosh. Well, first off, on all these lives, I'm going to sound like a damn broken record because I really do believe that it always starts with getting quiet. And like getting really, well, and it's so interesting too, because I this has kind of been my theory for a while. And then I'll read things where I'm like, read things where people talk about this. And I'm like, yes, I told you, this is what I've been saying this whole time. Like, because,
Yeah.
a lot of times people talk about meditation as like being able to control your focus or your attention and things like that. And that's really, really important. But what's even more than that is it strips away all the stuff that isn't you. So you can actually hear you. And like, you start to actually be able to go inside of yourself and be like, wait, what do I actually want? It kind of like just allows things to calm down enough that you can connect with that. So that's number one, is like actually creating time for yourself where things are still and you're quiet. Because that's when you're actually going to hear yourself and notice. When we're so caught in this like rat race and go, we stop feeling like, we stop really being in touch with ourselves, because it just, we're so focused on like the to-do list and like getting things done. And that can get really dangerous, because you literally like, I've met people who have the experience where they like lift their head up out of the fog and they're like, wait, this wasn't the life that I planned for that I really wanted.
Right.
Which is scary. So get quiet, slow down, actually like plan time to get connected with yourself, whether it's meditation or journaling or like get into nature, just something to slow down. And then the other piece is sometimes the thing that I'll give people is like starting small. So I'll like, so many of my clients will come to me and they'll be like, I'm trying to find my passion. I don't know what the next, what is the like the ultimate career that I want to be doing. And I'm like, okay, let's start with like the next thing. Or even smaller than that, let's start with like, what do you want for lunch? Like we're so used to asking these, like putting so much pressure on ourselves to know exactly what the right thing is, but we're so out of practice with checking in with ourselves for little decisions.
Right.
that then like suddenly we turn the gradient all the way up, and it's like why can't I figure out what the perfect career is for me or something? And it's like, well, because you've been living your life like completely, you know, in your head and like doing everything that you think you're supposed to be doing, and you're completely disconnected with yourself. So I think, and you know, I got that from an acupuncturist a few years ago who I think detected this thing in me. She was like, homegirl's like completely in her head. She has no idea what's going on with her body. Like I was completely like heady, and there's nothing wrong with being that way, but the question of like, what do you want was so far outside of my reality.
Yeah.
I had no idea how to answer that question. And I remember she said to me, she was like, you know, I think I'd spent most of my life thinking about like, you know, making decisions in a way where it was like, what decisions are in line with my goals. So like,
Yeah.
even when I'd wake up in the morning, I'm like, green smoothie, because that's the healthiest thing I could possibly be eating. And I wouldn't actually check in with myself. Like, what do I actually want? And so she looked at me and she was like, just practice waking up in the morning and asking yourself like what you want for breakfast. She's like, start there. And it was such a small piece of advice, but it was so true. And there was something about that really stuck with me. Well, and Cara, like you've done this supernaturally, you know, like, so I guess that's another piece, you know, like I've worked with coaches and mentors literally on teaching myself to do this and to actually tap in with myself, because I had no idea how the hell to do it. But like, Cara, you've always been like, you do it supernaturally. It's really, really cool.
It's
like,
funny.
You know,
It's funny you say that, because I actually was gonna tap into, you said something about you know, some like within your story about the woman who's like, wake up and ask yourself like, what do you want? Right? What do you want for life? So I think there's something there, because at the end of the day, it's like, what do I want? I could sit here and say, okay, I want 5 pancakes, and I want
I always want 5 pancakes.
Ice cream on top with some chocolate syrup, you know, at the end of the day. And I continue to ask myself every day, like, what do I want? And my body, my soul is like, well, you want these pancakes, right? And then you look up and you're like 20 pounds overweight.
Totally, yeah. It's like, not the best.
Right. So for me, I think it's like a combination of like you said, like, what do you want? But getting clear on, for me, I've always been good at what I want and like seeing that. So having vision first. I've always been good with having a vision for my life. And granted, you don't have to be stuck within these guardrails, and like life is going to happen, right? They say you make plans and God laughs at you, right? But, and then your life just goes a completely different way. But literally from my career, like my 10-year career in media and entertainment, I literally had that vision as a teenager, as a young girl. That was my vision. Working in New York City was a vision in my mind. You know what I'm saying? Working for magazines was a vision. Before I went into my entrepreneurial journey, that was a vision. You and I speaking 2020 impact with these 5 women, that was a vision. You know what I'm saying? And so for me, and I think this is another thing that's great for women, is getting clear, getting still, and then working on your vision. Because then at the end of the day, when you're like asking yourself the question, what do I want? What is my intuition telling me? You can always go back to your why, right? So in the morning, if I have this vision of, I want to be in the best shape of my life, I want to be, you know, chiseled, whatever the vision of your health is for you, you can say, what do I want? My body wants the pancakes, but my heart and my soul wants that body, and not just for vain reasons, but so that I can keep up with my dream and my purpose. So I don't be lethargic all the time, so that I can get up and actually take, you know, work out. Like for me, working out helps me with ideas, so that I can live longer, so that I can run around with my kids. And so when you think about, you get up and you're like, what do I want? And that's with any area of your life. And you're like, well, I want this. But then I also, my why is, I want this vision that I see, this prosperity, this abundance, this exciting life. That's what I really want, right? My body is telling me what I want based on, oh, I just saw a commercial, so now I want a cheeseburger. Yeah, that's my body. But
who hasn't been there? Like, you're scrolling through Instagram, you're like, I've got my green juice, everything's fine, and then you hit like waffles, and you're like, God damn it! Like,
all of a sudden, the smoothie isn't good,
and now I do.
Right. So I've been, and that's why I think it naturally comes from me, because I love to imagine. Like, I'll literally take time and sit and dream. I have no problem with that. And that's a lot of why I do like the Pretty Passionate experiences and the hikes. And I can't wait so we can get back to those, because I encourage women, I mean, people in general, but as you know, I talk to women a lot, to explore and to dream. And I've always been, a visionary, I guess. Like I've always had vision.
You're very visionary.
Yeah, and that's what drives me. And so when I'm, like you said, when I ask myself, even when it comes to relationships, right? Like, especially now with the role that I'm on, like this isn't for everybody. And the man that's going to be with me is going to have to support me in a very unique way. You know what I'm saying? And so when I come to relationships, it's like not, and again, you don't have to be so tight where it's like, this doesn't fit in this vision. However, I know where I want to go, and is this going to help me? You know, so I think that helps with trusting that intuition, because at that point you got your vision and you've been still. So now and that's what your spirit wants. The vision that you had in the stillness, the vision that you have is what your spirit wants. That's like clues that this is what you want. And so if your spirit is off with a person or opportunity, then that's not your, you know, that's your intuition, like an alarm system. Hello. Flashing lights, go the other way, you know.
My friend Solange just commented. She said, "Hey Lauren, hey Solange." Cara, I love everything you just said. So one of the things, there are a couple of things I wanted to touch on in one, because I think you hit on one thing that I think a lot of people have some hesitation around when like, especially, I don't know, in my experience, when I talk about like listening to what you want and your intuition, a lot of people get this like, oh God, it's going to turn into a mosh pit. Like this is going to turn into a shit show. Like if I just listened to all the things that I'd want, I'd be 700 pounds. I would never work out. And like my business would be in shambles because I would just sit on the couch all day. And I think there's like, this is one of the reasons why it's important to start the process of actually calibrating and like, I'm not explaining this well, like listening to your internal signals and calibrating the way that they guide you. So for example, like after now kind of being in this conversation for a while, if I'm watching TV and there's a Burger King commercial and suddenly I'm craving, like, I'm like, I want a cheeseburger, I can look at that and be like, why do I want a cheeseburger? I want a cheeseburger because it's going to give me a dopamine hit and I'm going to feel good for 10 seconds and I'm going to feel like crap for the rest of the day. Like if I actually go below that and I'm like, is this honoring my body? Is this honoring the things that I've said that I want in the world? Is this honoring me? Sometimes it is. Right. Like sometimes we go out with friends and we're celebrating and it's like, and I mean, I'm using food as an example, but like sometimes it really actually is honoring you. And sometimes your goal is to get like super chiseled or something, like, you know, enjoying your life and actually be part of being balanced. And if I think the thing that I'm pointing to is also being able to, like, you have something come up and actually get curious about why you want it. What about it is driving you? Is this something that I've been taught to want? Is this something that's actually in alignment? And this is one of the reasons why that inner work of knowing yourself and knowing what's you and what's not is so, so, so important. So like, Cara and I are very, very vision oriented. So, I mean, I feel like it's almost a little bit like, we talked about this last time, how we like literally will have these very clear mental images of us like building our businesses in a certain way. And it's like, that's the thing.
Yeah.
And like, but that's something that kind of came with a lot of practice and that I think allows us to use that as like an alignment system for when we're making smaller decisions and like along the way. But you don't get there overnight. Like you have to start with something. I'm trying to remember what else you said too, because I had a couple of other thoughts. Oh, that was the other thing I was going to say. You said, I don't remember what you said that made me think of this, but what does it feel like when you ignore it for you?
Oh,
yeah.
When I ignore it, I'm trying to like I always have to like take it's so funny. One of my homegirls, Jessica, is on the line, and whenever we talk and like she asks me something, I always have to put myself in that position to bring up the feeling. So as I want to get this right, I know it's bad. When I ignore it, it hurts almost. It almost hurts. Yeah. Because it's like, it's almost like, if you're an honest person and you have integrity and you do something behind someone's back, you know how that eats you up? It's almost like I'm betraying myself when I do it. So it's that type of pain. It's that type of nagging, like, damn, you know what I'm saying? And it just naturally comes whenever I ignore it. And so, yeah. It never leaves me. It never leaves me. Like, whenever I've tried to ignore my intuition, like legit with anything in my life, it never leaves me. It always comes back until I do something about it. And that's when I started to get into the practice of trusting it. Like leaving my, going out on my own, you know, a lot of it was the call, but a lot of it was the intuition is the call, right?
Yeah, that's
and
what it is.
So when I would ignore it, all right, I ignored it for now, and it would always come back up. Always come back up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
Well, and I even look back at my stuff, and I'm like, there was a period of time when I was in graduate school, like different periods of time where I was like really, really overriding a lot of those internal signals. And I have to tell you, I think we mentioned this last week, like I got physically ill.
Mm-hmm.
I was depressed.
Mm-hmm.
My anxiety was out of control. Like,
mm-hmm.
like I've had maybe 2 periods of time in my life where I've experienced panic attacks. And I really think that like my body was kind of telling me, pay attention. This is not for you. This is like not honoring you. And I think it's because like the thing, Cara, you said about self-betrayal is so incredibly spot on. Like having that internal, you know, whether it's feeling like I need to go pursue this business, or this is this isn't the relationship. Oh, that's a great one. That's a fun one we could unpack. This isn't the relationship for me, or this partnership with like, I don't know, whatever, this business project isn't like actually honoring the direction of my business or me, or like something's off and you ignore it. It literally involves like you having to betray yourself over and over and over again to be able to stay in that thing.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And it's like, it's excruciating. It'll completely, because it's your relationship with yourself. So of course, when you're betraying yourself over and over again, you're going to have all kinds of stuff pop up where it's like, and I think I talked about this last week, like we have all these people who are like, why am I so miserable? And it's like, well, stop doing that to yourself. And I know it's easier said than done, but like you have to start somewhere. So, and hey, been there. Like it's not easy. This doesn't just involve like just waking up one morning and being like, I think I'm going to go make all my dreams a reality and stop being an asshole to myself. Like it takes practice. Yeah.
And, it's so powerful what you said about why, a lot, and granted, we said this on the last call, there are like, obviously like clinical things around depression and so forth, but a lot of like mental health, depression, or just anxiety or not feeling comfortable stems from not being in alignment, to your point. Mm-hmm. But it's a sucky place to be because some people don't realize that's why. So they don't, and then 2, they don't know how to tap into their intuition. Right, to get out of it. So like you and I, right, we're naturally tapping into our intuition, or now we know it's intuition. Now we know, and we know it's alignment. We've known it was alignment for a while. So when those things start to happen, whether it be in relationships or jobs or opportunities or things that we thought were opportunities or projects, and we're feeling like that betrayal, we're feeling sick, we're getting breakouts, we're feeling sad, anxiety, we immediately can recognize and be like, this is why. But people who are not in tune with themselves, who don't have a vision, and who don't have the tools to understand this is why, then they stay there because they're confused in that space. And that's why I think, right, the power of these conversations, because if you don't know, then you don't know, right? Because like you said, we've all been there, but that was before we knew. Now you know, and you could immediately, like for me, like my practice, every morning I get up, and you know this, but for everyone on the line, like I have a moment of stillness. I pray, I meditate, I do all the things. It's like a whole hour process just for me. I do that every morning and every evening. If I don't, and I do it faithfully now, like without fail. Some days it might be 30 minutes or whatever, but without fail. And I didn't start that really until the last year of my life, like every single day. Before that, I would do it. And then some days I wouldn't, maybe I hung out late till 1 o'clock in the morning. So I didn't do it that night, or I got up late and I was like hungover, whatever. And I do that for a few days, and I would start to feel tired. I would start to feel fearful. I would have anxiety. I would be quickly irritated. And I'm like, why? Because I haven't connected with myself. And so people ask me all the time, like, you know, you have such great energy. How are you able to show up? Like this morning, I posted a video like singing. I was feeling it, but that only happens when I'm able to connect with myself and my intuition early in the morning, so that I can show up better during the day. You know what I'm saying? So I say all of that to say it sucks because a lot of people who are in these, you know, these very anxious places and things aren't going right, they don't realize that it's an intuition thing and they're out of alignment. And so it's like this cycle that continues to happen.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think it's funny because, I mean, there are a couple things I want to hit on in what you said. Number one is that intuition can be such a dirty word. Like, you say it and people are like, woo, woo, woo. And it's like, no, it's just about you, like, listening to yourself. Like, so many of the things, the ways that we make decisions are like things that were taught to us, things that we have been, like, we've been trained and taught to believe are important, that still might be, but like, are they actually yours?
Right.
And like that rat race, then there's nothing wrong with the rat race. The rat race is like, there's nothing wrong with leading like an achievement oriented lifestyle if it's yours. Yeah. If you're choosing it, if it's actually in alignment with who you are and what you want to create in your life. And the only way you can do that, the only way you can identify that is by getting connected with yourself and your inner voice. I mean, you can call it what you want, inner voice, intuition, whatever, but figure out how it's communicating with you. For me, it's weirdly physical. Like I will like physically become ill. I almost never get sick. If I'm sick, it means that I'm completely operating on top of a bunch of stuff and ignoring it. Or like if my skin breaks out, if I start getting digestive issues, like it's very strange. And it's took me a few years to learn that. And like, it literally has that feeling of like something's off inside of me. And the other thing I also wanted to hit on is is the piece about, so if you're out of alignment and you're experiencing things like anxiety and depression, that doesn't mean that just getting into alignment is like the only thing that you need to do to take care of yourself. Like, so for me, like, and for a lot of people who I know, when you start this conversation about like, how do I actually heal my relationship with myself? It takes a lot of therapy. Like, you end up in therapy, you might end up on antidepressants, you might end up on anti-anxiety medication. Like, there are a lot of different things because a lot of it can be chemical, a lot of it can be trauma related, and that's okay. It's actually about like, you doing what you need to do to take care of yourself. Not just, this isn't, I don't think either of us have any intention of ending up in a conversation where we're just like, just follow your dreams and it'll fix everything. Like, no, that's not how it works. It's actually, it can be messy, like starting this process, because sometimes when you start listening to yourself, you don't like the things that you see and hear. And I think a lot of people, they shy away from it because of it, because the easy thing is to stay on the hamster wheel and be like, well, live this kind of externally driven life where like, we're taught to, like go make $1 million, end up with the perfect relationship with the picket fence and the minivan, and like it'll fix everything. So a lot of people will keep chasing that and ignoring what's happening on the inside because it's the easier thing to do.
Yes, every day is a choice. Amen.
Yeah, seriously.
Tasha said a lot of work.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and Cara, where for you, like, we've talked a lot about this in our like own conversations, but so this has shown up in your, like, how has this shown up for you? Just like in your own life, like, how do you actually use, I don't know, like, what does this process actually look like for you in a tangible way?
Like trusting your intuition?
Yeah, like I'm thinking about how it shows up in my business. I'm thinking about how it shows up in my relationships. I'm thinking about times when I've ignored it in any of those places, and which both of us, I think we've had conversations about like how the hell that's gone. Spoiler alert, never great. It doesn't go great. Yeah, but like, where else has it shown up for you? And like, what is it? Yeah, where else?
What it looked like, right? So I remember, to your point, I haven't necessarily gotten physically, like, and I think we talked about this a little bit on the last call, but physically sick. But I remember when I was at my 9 to 5 and it started to, and I knew, I'm like, holy crap, like, not that, oh my God. And again, we talked about this, so it might be a broken record, but not that I was like, the job was so horrible, because it wasn't. Because a lot of times people feel like, I have to wait until this gets so horrible where I can't breathe. And a lot of times when we think about leaps of faith or going out 100%, it's when your back is up against a wall. And either you got fired, either you got laid off, or your back is against the wall and you're like, holy crap, I'm miserable. Get me out of here.
Yeah.
But let's be clear. That only happens when you are not listening to the call and you're out of alignment. Because I'm sure before it got that crazy,
it was whispering.
You had feelings of wanting to do something else, start a business or get a promotion or apply to another job. And it might not even be entrepreneurship for everybody, but you had this feeling of doing something different with your life, taking the next step. And you had signs and you had calls and you had feelings. Yeah. And then you was like, nope, I'm going to stay right here. It's safe. But is it safe? It ain't safe. Because if you are feeling that, it's your responsibility to do something about it, unless God, the universe, whoever you believe in, will make you do it. Okay, we talked about this. So for me, when I was in my 9-to-5, it wasn't, it was stressful, but every job is stressful. Every corporate situation is stressful, but I loved it. And my back wasn't up against the wall. And with Pretty Passionate and what I do is, why can't we proactively, and what you and I both do, why can't we proactively make these decisions? That way you have control over your destiny. That way you can make a plan. That way you can build your faith muscles and your, getting still muscles and your intuition muscles. And once you start to take those steps, the universe is like, all right, I'm going to support you, or God is like, I'm going to support you in that. But when you like, nah, I ain't going to listen, they like, you're going to get up out of here. I'm going to get you fired. I'm going to lay you off, whatever. So anyway, so when I was in that situation and I would fill the call and I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Or, all right, in a few years, I'll do it. No. But it kept getting stronger for me and stronger and stronger. And we talked about this last week, to the point where I would like cry. And not because I was miserable. I cried because I'm like, I want to get to this thing so bad. Like my soul needs this. And I felt I was betraying myself. I felt almost like I just couldn't breathe. And so I began to like break out all on my neck. Like it got like crazy. And I'm like, why am I breaking out? It got like crazy all over my neck. And I'm like, yo, what's happening? And I started to realize like it was stress. I guess I was out of alignment, whatever. All these things started to happen. As soon as I left, after like maybe a month or so, like I haven't dealt with a breakout since. I haven't dealt with a breakout since. Not one, like not on my neck, not one, and how crazy it was. It was like all over my neck. And anybody who knows me, I think Jessica's on the line. I remember telling her like, yo, I don't know what is happening with my neck. So that's one way it has shown up for me. And honestly, even like from job to job, when it was time for me to leave another job, I've worked at several different companies. And when I started to feel a pull, like do more, in my current situation, it wouldn't be bad. But again, I felt almost like I was being suffocated. Like I couldn't breathe. Yeah. I felt like I couldn't breathe.
There's a little like sensation associated with it. And you start noticing it, right? Because I love what you just said, because it's like, another thing you asked me earlier, you were like, how do people start to feel this, like feel it and notice it? And I think people start to feel it and notice it when they're out of alignment. Like you start to feel it and notice it when like you're in a situation and you ignore your intuition, you ignore your internal guidance system, and then you see what happens. Like, I think I have some very clear moments in my life that I look back on and I'm like, usually your intuition is like kind of whispers to you. It's like just like a little poke. It's a little nudge. It's like, hey, this isn't quite right. Yeah. And then when you ignore it and ignore it and ignore it, it's like that thing where your back is against the wall and you're like, and it's screaming. Yeah. It's like, you should have listened to me.
Hello.
And like, I even look back on some things in my life and like that fell apart in a really big way. And I can literally look back at the breadcrumbs and be like, I ignored it there. I ignored it there. Yep. I ignored it there. Yep. And like, it's this really strange thing. Cause I think sometimes in life, those moments where it gets really loud, almost like catch us by surprise. But if we really slow down and look at it, it's like, did it really catch you by surprise? Like, Kari, you knew that was coming, girl.
Never.
Not in like a you should have known. Like, I think we all do this where like we kind of go like, it's fine, everything's fine, until it's not fine.
Yes, reflection. Amen.
Yeah, totally.
And even like with relationships, right? I can look back with relationships, going back to feeling suffocated, and not that the relationship was bad, like past relationships, like even, you know, throughout my 20s or whatever. But it's almost like, you know what it is? It's almost like I'm not expressing my true self.
Yeah.
Right? I like, it's like something in you is like almost like you want to grow. Like, let's say if you had a plant, right? You had a plant and you planted this plant and it's growing, but it's in a really small pot.
Yeah.
So the plant can only grow as much as the pot can hold. The minute you take that plant out and you put it in a bigger pot, it sprouts and it blooms. And I think when we don't listen to our intuition, it's like we're keeping ourselves in this little plant, this little pot, right? And then it's like the branches are trying to grow and it's like trying to push, and it's like it's hard, it's like it just doesn't work, and you can't grow, and you're like, I know I can do more, I know I can express myself more. And not that, you know, if it's a relationship or a job, it's intentionally doing that to you. Like, it's not like, oh no, we're gonna suffocate you and keep you small. It's your job to realize when you can do more, when you can grow, when you can express yourself in a bigger way. And that's what happens when you get still and you create a vision. If you don't realize that, you will stay this plant in this small pot. And when you're in the small pot, that's as big as you'll be, hands down. So if I stayed at my job, I probably would have got a promotion. You know, I was an associate marketing director. I would have been director and maybe VP, but I would have stayed there. Now I'm on my own and I'm on this path. I have no guardrails. I can be as big as I want. My pay scale can be as big as it wants, because when you're in this job and you get directed, whatever, you're only going to get paid as much as that they're going to give you. Right? And so we may think, oh yeah, 6 figures is good. And it's amazing. It's amazing. It was like on my list to do. But what about 7 figures? What about beyond that? You know, what about impact? I'm making an impact here, but what about bigger than that? And that's why they say with God and dreams, you need to dream big. And so if you want to stay in this small pot, then stay there. But when your intuition is saying you should be planted in a bigger pot, you need to be planted in bigger soil, because you have so much more potential than that. You know? So.
Oh my gosh. Well, and I feel like that's so important too, because a lot of times we think it's like leaving the pot. How do we want to say this? But like switching pots. I don't know. But like making that leap is scary as all hell, because I think if you're like you and I were, like, it's like we were good at our jobs. Like staying inside of that, it wasn't necessarily that it was safe. Like, we were really good at it and successful.
Leaving the pot. They left
the pot.
Leaving the pot.
The pot. I don't know, guys. I don't know. I'm not a word. Kara's the one who does marketing and who's like way better with like taglines and words and stuff. I'm like, but like we were both, I think we could have let, I think sometimes we think like, you know, what we're talking about is like, go live a big, bold life. And like the things that it might actually are, the thing that you're walking away from might be a big, bold life. Like it might be something that you're really good at and that's really intellectually stimulating, or where success is like, success feels like it's guaranteed, right? Like, I know if I stay on this path, like I knew for me, if I stayed on that path, that I was going to be like, that good things were going to happen. And I was going to have to work my ass off. And there were parts of it that I really, really loved, but it's like that little internal nagging feeling. Like, I kind of wish I was spending my time doing something else. There's something that's off. And so like that leap really just involves like jumping outside of your comfort zone. It's like the thing that you're terrified to do is usually it.
Like, and that's where your intuition plays in a lot.
Yeah, totally. Well,
you have to, and you learn, like you said, you learn when you start to do things outside of your comfort zone. That's how you learn to trust your intuition more.
Completely. Well, and it's like, it's this space where I loved what you said. You're like, there are no guardrails. Like it's a complete faith conversation, because it's like, you just keep taking the next step. Like you take you make the leap to get outside of your comfort zone, and it feels like crap. Like, I don't actually, maybe not for you. I feel like the way you described it, you were like, I was so inspired. I'm like, I was terrified. I was completely terrified. It took me literally a year and a half of getting like some pretty hot, like pretty intense coaching to actually have the guts to make the leap. And granted, when I did, I was very, very sure of myself. But there were a couple moments, like my boyfriend at the time, he lost his job the day or the day after, I can't remember, the day that I gave in my notice. So I came home and I was like, woo, we're doing it. And then he's like, I lost my job and we just moved in together. And I was like, okay, okay. Everything's fine. So like, sometimes it's like you'll do it and it's like, you make the leap or whatever. And it can feel like crap, but at least when it feels like crap, it feels like you chose it.
Yeah. There's a lot of things coming up for me right now. So, you said you feel like crap.
Like,
and don't
everyone,
get me wrong.
Doesn't it sound fun? Join us.
No, don't get me wrong. It felt, for me, let me tell you something. It was scary, but when I did it, I felt so liberated. And I can only say that was because of God, because of my faith. I clung to God and my faith like I have never done ever in my life. Yes. And with that, and even now, it has given me such peace, because to your point about knowing that all of the weight isn't on your shoulder, like you're not alone. And I never feel alone. Like in the moments when I was like, holy crap, like you're going up the roller coaster and it's like about to go down and you're like, whoa. But then once you go, you're like, oh, right?
Yeah.
So the moments when I felt like, whoa, I wasn't trusting. I wasn't trusting God. The moments I felt like, woo, yeah, I was in complete trust. And I knew that it was taken care of. And so it's very scary, but I didn't always have that. And that's what I teach in the LEAP program. That holy crap, right? She put a roller coaster. I think they have that. And that's what I teach in the LEAP program, right? Like building your faith muscles. This is a very big faith conversation, because I think we talk a lot about faith. A lot of people, not us, I'm just saying in general, but we really don't know what that means until you're like, faith is all you have. Right? And being an entrepreneur, and not even being an entrepreneur, but choosing to trust the person that's inside of you that's waiting to be expressed. And that could look like whatever. Yeah. Right? And so, to go back real quick about what you said about, you could have stayed at your job and been successful. I think for you, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was like about fulfillment, right? And so this is also a fulfillment conversation, right? Because then it's like, what does success look like? All right, I have money, I have material things, but I want to make impact, or I want to serve, I want to go and give, because we hear a lot of times people who had it all and then they go and they move to Africa, or they move to St. Thomas or island somewhere, they get this little hut, they run a little juice shop, and they're the happiest they've ever been in their life. Yeah. So getting really clear on what success looks like for you, what fulfillment is for you, and then all of that stuff doesn't really matter. So to your point, I think it was like, I want to be fulfilled. But I was saying, going back to building your muscles, like your faith muscles. And that's what we teach a lot in the LEAP program, is like uncovering, healing, and then building those muscles. And I think for me, it was very scary, but it's been a huge faith walk for me. It's huge.
Yeah. That's such a good point, because I'm thinking about it even for myself and a lot of my clients, because I talk a lot about faith with my clients too. And it's weird because it's like we automatically think like faith and like Cara has like a very strong faith in God. Like I'm very spiritual, but I wasn't always like this. And I don't know that I would be if I hadn't just jumped. So it's interesting, because I think I talk to a lot of people who aren't necessarily inside of this conversation, or they're like, maybe kind of dabble in spirituality, but they're like, faith in what? I think it's like you have to have something that's not you. Like, so that it doesn't feel like if it falls apart, it's all your fault and like it's all your shortcoming. Like you have to align yourself with some mission or something that feels larger than who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And so that it doesn't feel like the weight of the world is on your shoulders. I also think that something really magic, I don't know many people who haven't made a leap like this, who don't have some kind of like a faith, you know, who don't, I'm just checking the time. This is my ADD kicking in. Okay.
Okay, 10 minutes.
The like who haven't made the leap and like realized how magical it actually is. Like,
Yes. Woo.
There's this very strange thing. This is woo woo AF, but like there's this thing that I tend to see with people where, actually I had someone say to me once, it's like most of us think I build the net and then I leap. You know, like I'm thinking about moving soon, and it's like, so I'd be like looking at different apartments and like looking at the different budgets associated with the apartments and like looking at what are the implications for my business, and like building these plans that would make me feel safer before I make the jump to do something scary and get outside of my comfort zone. But what's actually very strange is that it's actually the opposite. We leap and then the net appears.
Yeah.
Like, make the choice and then the way kind of just like shows up in this very organic kind of magical way, and it usually gets most people who I know into a conversation about like, wow, like, okay, what is, like, you know, this is kind of magical, like how this happens. And it kind of gets most people into a faith conversation, because it's like trusting in like your purpose, trusting in your mission, whether it's God or the universe or whatever. But like, it's just, and even if it's just, I think honestly for some people it's just a mental exercise of like, what does faith look like here? If I were in like really stepping into my faith muscles, what would that look like? Even if it doesn't feel like there's faith in something specific, or you don't really like ascribe, like, you know, there isn't like a specific organized religion that you ascribe to. But it's got to be something, because if it's all on you, it's going to be too much pressure. Like, it just is.
It's going to crush you.
Yeah. I also think it's one of the reasons why it's like really useful to have someone like Cara, or like have like a program like that where you have other people who have done it and have shown, like, you kind of have faith in the process and have faith, like people, you know, I think I said to you at one point, I had a coach when I started this who I would call, like, a friend who was a coach, and I'd probably call her every couple weeks and I just say, I need you to remind me that this is possible.
Yeah.
And that I'm not being crazy, and that there's like something specific that I have faith in, that this isn't all made up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was really, really helpful. So yeah, it's completely a faith conversation.
Completely. Yeah, man. Guys, do you have any questions for us as we get ready to wind down? But yeah, I wanted to, like, I think we talked about this last time, and we kind of, when we talk, we just kind of flow with each other. But like the magic, I think we want to talk about the magic. And I think honestly, like, I can't wait until, you know, because there's been so many magical moments in my life, like leading up to this point, and I'm sure you can agree, and a lot of us, where we're like, whoa, that just worked out. I didn't even think I would get, you know, the car or approval, and oh, okay, you know. But I think this process, like the first year after you take the leap, it's it's magical in a very different, supernatural, very like, oh, type of way. And I think you know, I can't wait to tell that story. You know, obviously there's certain things that you have to keep sacred and keep to yourself until a certain point, but I can't wait until to tell that story.
Yeah, completely. I completely agree. Well, you're in, it's really cool, Cara, because you're like in that story.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So like, I feel like the big things to probably take from this conversation, I'm curious, like, Cara, what you would leave people with, but yeah, I think like the ability to listen to what's uniquely right for you versus, I think that's really like the central thesis of this. It's like, I think we use things like intuition, and it's like, woo, what does it sound like? But it's like internally referenced decision making versus externally referenced, where it's like you're actually looking internally at what makes sense for you and what lights you up, versus and like what what's right for you, not what have we been taught to do, not like what's the thing that like everybody else is doing, and being able to actually tap into that and use it in any given moment is like is the thing that makes the difference between people who completely crumble under the pressure of like making leaps like this and people who don't. And like doing that by like getting quiet, by like joining communities like Kara's of like that, you know, where everyone's kind of in this conversation, starting with small decisions and like really checking in with yourself all the time. Don't wait until you're like, you know, do I take that like huge ass job and like uproot my whole life or whatever, or like leave my husband or like whatever. Like start small. And but it's I think it's like a core competency for people who are in this work. So
no, I agree 100% with everything you said. And the only thing I would probably add to that is have patience with yourself. Learning to trust your intuition and go within to get those answers. It doesn't happen overnight. And sometimes it takes a little while. So I would say have patience with yourself, and constantly seek, like constantly look, right? And look to trust your intuition. Look to trust, not trust, but look to find what it is that you want. Ask those questions, because when you begin to seek and ye shall find, right? And so as you begin to look, people start to show up in your life. Conversations like this start to just pop up in your feed. Messages, notifications drop on your phone, you know, emails in your inbox that begin to lead you on the path of trusting your intuition, getting in alignment, trusting where you're supposed to be and what it is that you want. So as you look, as you start to seek, you're putting out that vibration. Oh, and we need to talk. I think we should talk about that in one conversation too. Universal laws, right? Law of vibration. A lot of times people talk about the law of attraction. Great, but the law of vibration comes before the law of attraction. You have to be vibrating on a certain frequency to get what you want. And so that goes back to the law of reaping what you sow, right? And so whatever you're putting out into the world, they say, like, you know, if you want good relationships, you have to first be a good, if you want good friendships, you got to first be a good friend, right? If you want money, you got to give money, right? Because it's that vibration and that frequency. So when it comes to figuring out what it is that you want, trying to figure out how to listen to your intuition, you have to put that vibration out into the world. And that begins with seeking. Look, keep asking the questions. And that's how it started for me in my 20s. And again, once you do that, that vibrational frequency will bring things to you, like people, like conversations, like notifications on your phone, whatever that is. So be patient with yourself and never stop seeking. Seek and ye shall find.
Yeah. I think that's a great place to leave it.
All right, guys. Well, this has been great. What is this, like episode 4?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think episode 4. Yeah. Crazy. We'll have to figure out what we're going to talk about next time.
Yes.
Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in, and we will be back next week at the same time.
Yeah. Happy Memorial Day. Get out and enjoy. If it's nice where you are, have some fun.
Cool. All right. Bye, everyone.